Great. So good evening, everyone. You know, I'm Michael Scarpello. I'm the Dallas County Elections Administrator, and we're here to meet once again with the Vote Center Advisory Committee. I just want to start by thanking all the members of the committee for all the hard work you guys did in coming up with the low turnout model that we used for the May election. Feel really good about that. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then, so I'll just show the agenda here. So the agenda as published, supposed to discuss and review the effectiveness of the low turnout model. And then in May 6th, joint special election, and then to discuss implementation and details of a proposed high turnout vote center model, and then to discuss next steps. So, having said that, so first thing I want to do is to discuss our previous actions. So on March 8th, this committee voted to recommend a low turnout model that included 362 locations. And then on April 4th, Commissioners Court passed an amended version of the low turnout model, which included 369 locations. And that was 370. I think it's 370.
Our copy says 370.
Yeah. And so they added several locations that are listed here on the screen. Campbell Green Recreation Center, Frank Motes Elementary, Seagoville Elementary, and so on. They also, at the same time, they chose to remove certain locations, and some of those were by choice, and some of them were because of a change in circumstances. Some of those locations, I think, backed out after the initial approval by this group. And so we ended up with 370 for the low turnout model that we used for the election, or that we planned on using for the election. We ended up using 366 locations for this election. Sorry, guys.
Oh, I didn't try it. No, it's okay. It's me. I'm trying.
We ended up using 366 because we had approved, the Commissioners Court had approved 370, but 4 of those locations were not available for this election. So having said that, there's a few slides with some statistics. So you see, this shows turnout for the 19 May election, the 21 May election, and the 23 May election. And so for this election, I think we had projected turnout of 9%. Turnout ended up being 8.85%, so a little bit below our projections. The numbers of how people voted were a little bit different. The vote by mail, I think we had been in the 4%, projected a 4% number, but only 1.9% of people voted by mail. Early voting was the big number, 58%, though that was a little bit higher than historic. So it was 51% in 21 and 55% in 19. And then on election day, 39%, 39.5% as compared to 44.9 and 40% in previous elections. So in total, 114,000 registered voters instead of 128 or 134. So, you know, it's always interesting to look at turnout and what is it that drives turnout? Is it convenience or is it who's on the ballot? And so what we kind of found is that we had pockets of pretty high races, you know, hot races, and then some areas where we were just dead. It's really, really slow. I'm going to pause right there. Any questions of anything I've talked about so far? Okay. So this is showing the number of locations that we used. So in May of 19, we had 300, this was prior to Vote Center. And when we did used to flex up and down a lot, with precinct consolidations. So we only had 324 locations in 19. And then in 21, we had 433. And then now using this new model, we use 366 for the low turnout model. What you see on the last two lines are the number of vote locations that had less than 50 voters. So we had, for May 21, we had 156 locations with less than 50 voters and 74 locations with less than 25 voters. For this election, we've improved that slightly. We still had 136 locations that had less than 50 voters and 65 locations less than 25. And so at this point, I want to kind of show you, I'm going to turn over to Petra, and she's going to show you the spreadsheet that kind of walks through each of those locations. So you can see the turnout location by location.
If you want to. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna come to you.
So I think what we have here is a list of all the locations used. And I'm going to have Petra sorted by turnout. And so go ahead and go high to low. And so as you can see, sorting high to low, use them in more.
I'm getting you doing all right.
So we had our normal suspects, you know, Capel, Fred's Park, Adelia, Branch Library, et cetera, that had significantly high turnout, ranging from 1197 and moving down. Go ahead and scroll down. Okay. I'm sorry, I guess that was. Go ahead and go back to the top.
These are individual.
I quoted the wrong line. 1149 and moving down. So only one location over 1,000 voters. One in 900s, one in 800s, a couple in 700s, et cetera. Go ahead and scroll down now.
They got slammed at Mockingbird Elementary School.
Yeah, we had a couple locations that were higher than expected.
Yes.
Hot races.
So still decent turnouts in these 200s, a lot of in 200s. Several.
There's our Dallas College.
So you're still over 100, and we're up to the 108th highest. It's down to 139. So keep going. Keep a little faster. Now we start getting into some lower numbers, 80s, 70s. And so by the 200th location, the 200th location had 61 voters. Now we're starting to get some low turnout.
So we have 165.
Two people?
Patrick, don't jump around, you're making
Sorry.
us dizzy. Keep going down slowly.
Let me fix this. one.
So the 50s,
Don't mess with it.
Yeah, you can. This one's not working. Let me update that.
Which one are we in right now?
That's the one you're on right now,
Which
unfortunately.
one?
Yeah, but let me update it. I'll bring it.
Okay.
several in the 40s, several in the 30s. And then we're getting down to some really low turnout people, numbers in the 20s.
These are day of election, not early
These
voting.
are day of election, there's only election day. And you can see
Everybody's
Yeah.
voting?
several locations that had less than 10 voters.
Yeah, we talked about that too.
Can you go ahead and tell us how many that is? Less than 10 voters?
That's 28.
28 locations with 10, less than 10 voters.
There was nothing on the ballot in Mesquite. was there?
Yeah, Mesquite, that Mesquite is very explainable. They allowed one vote, 2 votes in Mesquite.
We talked about some of those, like Wilmer Hutchins, we talked about that. I'm looking at some of this, but I'm sure we talked about, and this was the very thing I talked about metrics. And I guess I poo-pooed, because that's just a lot of money for 6 voters. They're important, of course. But we gotta figure out a metric. Because that's not cost effective for us.
Can you do me a favor, resort that way, low to high, and then start to go to the top? And give a better sense of how many are the 1s and 2s.
You know, the problem.
I mean, there were more people running the
So-
voting center than people.
As we just kind of talked about, those are kind of an aberration, the mesquites, because there was nothing on the ballot. So those would normally be a little bit higher.
Well, nobody ran in that. There was people, but nobody ran.
So, but then you get to depth, you see, now you're to that heavy holiday elementary, starting with Dallas, Lancaster, et cetera, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
They didn't have anything on the ballot either, did they? Lancaster, the other suburbs.
So and this was just to give you guys a little bit of a preview or a review of turnout and how it ended up. We can provide all this to you. I mean, it is provided to you online where you can take a deeper dive into it.
She's
Where you can
working.
look at it by city, et cetera.
We're working on it.
Any questions about that, about those stats? And so, go ahead.
At Capel, where it had 1,000, was it because, was there multiple voting places at Capel, or was this just one?
I don't recall.
Small area.
There's more than one?
More than one.
It's not 800 either.
These were the locations in Capel. In total, there were 1,800 ballots cast in Capel on election day.
For those 5,
And there was 5, okay.
There are 5
no, wait, that's not,
Thank you.
wait. That's not Val.
That's
Oh, it is much rid of, okay, yeah.
They're all Capel.
And so, you know, I guess the question is, did we make the right choices, right? And, you know, some people are gonna say, no, we didn't. There's low, you know, 2, 3, 5 voters at locations. And then someone might say, well, yeah, those 2, 3, 5 voters were in an area where it's a walkable neighborhood and they had no other way to get to another location. So I think that when it comes to the low turnout model, we don't have to worry about it for another year. But we do have an opportunity to tweak it if we want, or suggest to tweak it. I don't think we're going to do that today. Because we've got other challenges ahead of us, for a high turnout model. But I wanted to kind of give you that feedback to see how we did. So you guys can take that, look at it, and contemplate whether or not, and we can actually do some plotting and see where those locations were at, and do a little bit deeper dive on those in the future. All right, share my screen again. There we go. So this is that summation of, 136 locations under 50 voters, 65 locations under 25 voters, and what did you say, how many under 10?
28.
28 under 10. This is some good news. And so one of the reasons that we changed models was for poll workers. And I have to give a lot of credit to the parties and to our staff here and a lot of people that really have been doing a great job of recruiting poll workers. And so for this last November's election, for instance, we needed 31, we allocated 3,161, we needed that. And we had 3,486 available, so we had a surplus. As opposed to a year ago, last summer, we were short 320 workers. For this May, as you can see, we needed 1,577. We had 2,376 available and ready to work. And so we had a surplus of nearly 800 workers. So that, to a certain degree, because of the hard work and the recruiting of workers, we do have room to have more polling places. So one of the reasons for reducing was poll workers. Well, that reason's going away a little bit because we're just working so hard to try to make sure we've got enough. The other reason was, the cost and the cost to the city and the cost, et cetera. The costs for the May 6th election have not been finalized yet because we still get bills in all the time. I mean, it takes 30, 60 days before we even get a bill in from some of our vendors and from all of our locations and et cetera, et cetera. So we don't know what our savings are going to be, but when we did the initial projection, we thought it was going to be about $800,000 by the reduction that you made. So we'll see. I know that we ran a really lean election because we took all of those. Keep in mind, just as a reminder, we do Petra, in fact, does a great job of doing the analytics. How many expected voters at each of these locations, how much equipment we need, how many people we need, et cetera, et cetera. And so not every location has the same amount. Some locations have 4 workers, some 7, some 10. And same with the equipment. And that's important because for the participating jurisdictions, they have to pay for that equipment. So when we have a lot of times we have poll workers that say, give me some more, I need more voting machines. Well, every one of those voting machines costs in that jurisdiction about $300. So we say, no, you don't need it. Our projections say, no, you don't need it. And so when we talk to the city secretaries, we ask them, when poll workers complain about not having enough people or enough equipment, do you want us to give in and give them more, or do you want us to hold the line and use our projections? And they said, hold the line, because money's important. Money's tight with the cities. And so we did that. And I don't think we had any issues. We did respond. I mean, what's critical though is if you're going to do projections and you're going to have lean deployments, you have to monitor. And we did monitor. We have monitored by the hour on election day, and we respond if we think and I think we added a couple machines, a couple people at a couple locations.
Yeah, during early voting and then between early voting and election day, we also bumped staffing and equipment for election day locations.
Yeah, and so during early voting, what we're seeing is we see, oh, here's a trend, here's a part of the county where it's trending higher than we thought, so then we make adjustments. Prior to election day, we deploy a little bit more. Then on election day, we're monitoring also, and I think that those were the small, I think there was just a couple locations that had a few more, one or two more people, and then one or two more machines. So another issue that some people might be concerned about is say, well, if you cut down the number of polling places, are you going to create lines? And so what we found is we didn't. And so because our average wait time was 12 seconds, we are monitoring those wait times on a regular basis throughout the day. And so we really had no significant lines anywhere.
That's awesome.
Yes, it is.
And so that's really all I had. You know, we can go really deep with the low turnout model and talk about a lot of it, but that's all we were going to present today. And I want to kind of throw it out for discussion about, you know, what are your thoughts about the model, whether or not, you know, it's the recommendation that we're going to keep going. You know, there's still going to be a low turnout model versus a high turnout model, whether or not you think we should consider bumping it up, keeping it the same, lowering it, you know, those things. So open discussion about it. Diane.
Diane Tassian, League of Women Voters of Dallas. And based on the numbers of very low turnout, I think, and the very low wait times, my opinion is that we could reduce the number of the low turnout vote centers if we're very careful not to leave gaps in areas of need.
Other thoughts?
Oh my God, as I said before, and the other thing, we got wrapped around kind of the axle when we were talking about this before about who was being disenfranchised or possibly would be, like we talked about Joppy was a big deal.
Right.
This decision has got to be based on some sort of statistical analysis, not emotion. It's got to be. And it can't be determined. It can't be determined by the way I feel about a certain area. It just can't. That just doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work. So 136 or 74 sites. That's how much money does it cost to open 74 sites for less than 10 people? That's a big deal.
But you've got to remember, Mesquite had nothing on the ballot this time.
Right.
And-
But I'm thinking of the places in our area
that was
work.
a
Yeah.
bunch of them, like
Well,
10 of them were in Mesquite.
Well, if we're gonna go down that road, then let's also remember that this was a very status quo election. And with that status quo election, you had an unopposed mayor, a lot of status quo re-election candidates for city council. So there wasn't a whole lot driving voters to the polls because many of them may have felt that the outcome was already going to be determined. There was token opposition for people that they knew were going to be reelected. So how much do we want to take from a very low turnout, low change driven election?
Yeah, but that could be part of the equation. That's what I'm saying. I get what you're saying. You're absolutely right. But we knew that.
Well, no, we didn't know what the turnout would be when we knew that there wasn't going to be any opposition to the mayor of Dallas. We didn't know what that was going to be. That's a fact. Nobody was predicting what the outcome was going to be for a mayor that was unopposed. And it is the very nature of spirited contests that drive participation in elections. So before we go too far down this road of let's make all of our decisions based on one extremely low turnout, very much status quo election, let's hold some things back and say maybe we need to look at another spring election in a non-federal year before we start making too drastic decisions.
Fine.
Yeah, I was wondering, since Mesquite didn't have any elections for the city or school board, I don't know if we want to do that, but can we say in areas for the low turnout, can we say we're not going to have as many in areas that don't have any elections? We still have to have some.
I don't believe we can,
We can't do
well,
that. That would
I
save a
don't believe
lot.
we can do that under the law. Because under the law, basically you have to have this, you have to have a methodology of how you arrive at your location. And then you use it for every election. So that's one of the reasons that, you know, we went to a low turnout, high turnout, because back in 2021, when we said, hey, can we reduce the number? The legal answer was no. But you can set up a two-tier method.
Sorry, you got a reminder from online to please introduce yourself before you start speaking.
David Pate, Richardson ISD. I think you were going to give us some of this data at an upcoming meeting, but I know when we looked at this before, you had like the average distance traveled to the polling locations. And that might be helpful in evaluating this. And certainly I get John and Bonnie's, I agree with them, you know, if there was a way we could, and clearly there's not, as you pointed out, you know, reduce the number of locations in an area that's doesn't have anything on the ballot, but barring that, if at least we could start looking at still that average travel distance. And like you said, there's got to, as much as none of us want to do it, we do have to look at the cost effectiveness of some of these locations to some degree.
So we will write that down, and so we will add that statistic, you know. Okay.
Hey, Michael, this is Amy Niemer, City of Richardson.
Yes.
Don't we have consistent data back to at least 2019, if not before that, that shows us the low turnout locations?
Yes, and actually, that's a great point, Amy, because when we made these decisions, we based it off of 2019 and 2021, the two elections in 2021. Now we have another one to add to that statistic, and you kind of look at the average of those many elections.
Oh,
So in my opinion, we don't need to go another cycle before we can make some solid recommendations based on the data.
In addition, Michael,
Yes.
good evening, Lavetta Levels. I agree with the speaker previously regarding the absence of a mayor or a contested mayor race that's affecting the low voter turnout. And so that is a huge consideration, especially in the suburbs, specifically in Cedar Hill and DeSoto. And I know the same with the city of Dallas. When you don't have those contested mayor elections, it does affect the turnout. Additionally, do we have information regarding the latest DART bus changes? We know that in District 3, 70% of our voters utilize they need public transportation for work. And I'm not sure with the recent changes with DART, if that affected any of our voting centers, and if we have information regarding having access to DART transportation at our recommended voting centers.
That's a great point, Dr. Levels. So we know that we do have a layer on our DART, transportation, but Kevin, we just got to check and make sure that if it's been updated. Okay.
Yes, we just met with DART, and I'm going to meet with them again regarding this, because they did share. I mean, there's some changes specifically in South Oak Cliff, Highland Hills, Singing Hills, to where the routes are just going to the periphery of neighborhoods, where normally those buses went directly into neighborhoods. We found that, I give an example, a resident who lived in a neighborhood in Singing Hills had to go all the way up to University Hills, to closer to UNT Dallas, which was more than almost 2 miles from her, and she is a senior citizen, and so she opted not to use the bus. And so we have concerns like that I think we need to consider.
Understood. Other thoughts?
The only other data point was that, and you mentioned you had, the wait times were much better. I think you said that the wait times were shorter this time around, if that could be added in somehow to like that average distance they were traveling and all.
So I think just off the top of my head now, remember that's average wait time.
Right.
So I think the average wait time in the November election was like 1.2 minutes for early voting and 3.7 minutes for election day. This election day was 0.12 minutes or whatever it was. But location by location, that's going to vary. So we've got that data.
Wonderful.
And we can provide that.
But wouldn't that drive a certain amount, I'm sorry, this is Keeper and Alexander. Wouldn't that drive a certain amount of confirmation bias in that if you already have a low turnout election, you're not going to have a lot of wait time because there are less voters voting? So is that really an effective indicator of efficiency or effectiveness when you don't have as many voters as you were expecting or you want to have turn up at an election? Two other questions. Have we finished our site evaluations? And what about the inventory of sites that had not been on Dallas County Elections voter site inventory, like Cummings Gym, that missed the evaluative process altogether? Have we done anything towards closing that gap, or did that go on hold because of the elections?
We finished the site surveys of all the locations that had ever been used as a polling place. What we're going to continue to do, with the help of this group, is to survey those locations that have never been a polling place that we may want to make a polling place. That answer your question?
Well, I have a question because Cummings Gym, when Cummings Gym was raised, that seemed to escape the recollection of anyone because elections department didn't even have it on a list as a site. So there seemed to at that point be a question as to how comprehensive the inventory list of sites was that Dallas County Elections had ever used versus the sites that had been in existence when you took over.
Kevin, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Kevin Burns, Dallas County Elections. I just checked the data that we have concerning DART. Is a live feed from the DART website. It's what we call a response, so it should be updated by DART what they have.
Thanks, Kevin. Getting back to Kebron's question, I don't know, we'll have to look. I don't know this particular location. But he said Cummings Gym. But we'll have to look into that one. I'm not familiar with that.
Hey, Keeprin, was it named something before? Because I'm not finding it in VMAX.
Cummings Recreation Center. It's
Right, one on 2976 Cummings Street. I'm not finding that in VMAX as a location.
That was a site that had been under construction, and thus it had come out of the inventory while it was being renovated. And then it has now come back available for use of the community. It was one of the sites that Dr. Levels and I had proposed as an alternative site, and it went nowhere.
Got it. Okay, so when we last discussed it, it was under construction, and now it's not under construction. So you're asking us to look at it.
So we can put it on the list of potential.
It was, I'm sorry, let me be very clear. It had not been used since Mr. Scarpello took over because of construction. It has now come under construction, and when Dr. Levels and I mentioned it in the spring, no one was aware that it had even been utilized as a voting site, thus it had not been evaluated.
Do you know the last election it was used in? Because like VMAX goes back pretty far, and I'm not finding it. I'm just trying to get more understanding.
And we have no record of it being used.
Okay.
We'll definitely add it to the list to be evaluated later. I just wanted to see what I have historically on it. So if it came from another name or something.
Okay, other thoughts? Okay.
There was a comment about no races in Mesquite, but we need vote centers in Mesquite, right?
Yes.
But is there a way to a formula that can be applied to the turnout that says there was no relevant race in this area, and to help understand why that area had low turnout? Does that make, am I saying that very
Well, I
clearly?
think we do that
Okay,
to a certain degree as we, when we look, what was the turnout in 19? What was the turnout in the first race in 21? What was the turnout in the first race of 22 and the second race of 22 and now in 23? I mean, I think we kind of do that. I don't know, we'll have to think about if we can do that other than just by on ad hoc basis.
because it would help in the future, right?
I mean, we use averages now, which isn't great, but that's one of the reasons that we, I think we're pretty good at our statistics here.
Yeah.
But we're still amateurs. And that's one of the reasons that we're talking to SMU, the mathematicians there, and see maybe they've got some ideas on how we can incorporate those types of variables.
Renato Dos Santos, I just meant really not a question, but more of a comment in the sense that we want to ensure, and I'm sure your goal also would be to not create any desert vote centers and create just because people have elected not to vote, it doesn't mean that they're not potentially going to vote and needing those vote centers in the future. And that's something that would be very much, whenever we address that issue of where we're going to be, should be very much at the top of all of our concerns.
Other thoughts, questions, comments?
Are we gonna look at, I've got a concern about Mockingbird Elementary School. The curbside voting there is next to impossible. So are we gonna look at things like that for the future, keeping that or?
Yeah, I think that one of the things, just so you know, what we're doing now that we never used to do is we put all of our data into one big bucket, and where we're taking all of our comments, all of our complaints, all of our tickets from election day, and we put them in this giant database. And we're trying to analyze that data a little bit better and to be able to grade a location to see, what the problems are, so we can be aware of them. In addition to that, taking the surveys that we did and putting that information in. Of course, there's a lot of data crunch in there, and there's a lot to be looked at. And of course, we want to do that as quickly as we can because we want you guys to use that data when we're making these decisions, especially now for the high turnout model. And so it's common. We're working on it. It hasn't been our primary focus the last couple of weeks because we had a major election, but that's one of our summer projects to do that deeper dive question.
Yes, are you able to share with us any of the reasoning from the commissioners as to why they rejected some and added some so that we can maybe make a better informed decision as we do the high turnout model?
I couldn't speak to that off the top of my head. We'd have to go on a case-by-case basis. But, I don't know. All I know is they're the boss. And if they want to add a location, we add it. If they want to delete one, we delete one. Because they're ultimately legally responsible. Yes. Go ahead.
Michael, this is Amy with Richardson.
Yes.
She brings up a good point. I mean, it'd be nice to know kind of what they're thinking or what they have capacity for as far as changing. so that we're not wasting our time. I mean, if we're gonna have all these recommendations and they're not even gonna consider them because they are absolutely philosophically against closing centers, then we're just spinning our wheels. So we need to have some kind of direction from them. And I know it kind of goes, it's kind of the chicken before the egg or whatever, but I don't know, how can we get to that point where we know what direction we should be going?
Amy, I think you guys both make good points, and we'll try to, for those changes that they made, we'll try to see if they want to provide some feedback on why they need to be.
Well, some of them were locations, some of the ones that were eliminated were locations that were no longer going to be available for one reason or another. And they added some, I think the one Campbell Green Recreation Center, I think, that was kind of to help with, since the Richardson Civic Center was gone.
Yeah.
So.
I'm sure there's a variety of reasons,
right.
One by one, why they
Michael?
had to be deleted. Yes, go ahead.
This is Shanae Jennings, City of Irving. I know, and Amy, this may help you a little bit. On my behalf, Elba Garcia asked her first line aide to get with us, Brooks, and myself and Mona Lisa from Grand Prairie and everybody else. We went through each vote center together and looked at the data and the number of votes they were getting and methodically cut them down in agreement with each other. And if there was a problem, we'd say, okay, I don't think so. I don't think we should keep this one, or I think we should keep this one because, and we kind of worked it out. And then he would go back to Elba and talk to her. I would go back to my mayor and talk to him. And that's how we kind of correlated it. And we didn't have any votes below 50. So I was very pleased with the outcome of the, whatever we're calling it, low count vote center. But that's just from one vantage point. But Michael, you asked for feedback, and that's how we did it. And looking at these, we didn't have below 50. And I think the city of Dallas I had an unopposed mayor's race too. So, and we still had a great turnout.
Great.
I think that's a great exercise that y'all did, Shanae, but that was not applied across the board with all the commissioners' districts.
Yeah, and it just depends on the commissioners, I guess. Or maybe you could ask for the commissioner to send somebody.
And I know that we have SEAC members on this committee, and those SEAC members are appointed by the commissioner. Maybe they could be the liaisons to those commissioners to ask about those specific questions within their districts. That's just a thought. Go ahead.
Shanae Jennings. Okay, thank you. This is John Yours. I just wanted to and maybe get with you on that, because if you have a plan that works and there are parameters that you have in place and a system that seems to yield better results and actual metrics for why you choose what you choose, that's exactly what I've been saying for quite a while. I don't know what they are, but I'd love to see what they are.
Late.
Okay. Any other questions, thoughts about the low turnout model? Okay. Anybody online? All right. So we're going to turn our thoughts towards a high turnout model. So I want to talk about timelines. So we really want to move as quickly as possible over the next month or so, month and a half, to come up with a plan. That's because there's a lot of things that have to happen. So the political parties, they recruit judges to serve at these locations. And, they've got a big army of people ready, but they have to place them and decide who's going to go where, et cetera. But they don't have to, they choose to, because we can choose to appoint them generically. They tend to want to place them. And by law, we we appoint these judges once every either once every 2 years or once a year. You can do it either way. Historically, we have appointed for a 2-year term. We're contemplating changing that to make it a 1-year term.
Could you make a decision before I send out an email?
Contemplating. The question is, is it easier to do it 2 year or 1 year?
Easier for who?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's the commissioner's court's decision. I think, status quo, the 2 year is most likely going to be the case. The question for the parties is whether or not there's any advantage to doing a 1 year. Because what happens is that list gets so stale after a year that there's so many dropouts and stuff, then you're replacing stuff. So should you just do a new appointment every year anyway? So, but in any case, the parties have to, they're doing their work in July, they're doing their work now, June, July, they're finding people. So, and they can, for the most part, they can do 75% of their work, right? Because they know, the low turnout model stuff is probably pretty solid. It's what are we going to add? And so, so by August 1st, I think there's an August 1st Commissioners Court meeting. We would like to present this high turnout model. Get that approved, and then we can finalize what the parties have already been working on all summer on the August 15th Commissioners Court meeting. Now, this is the best case scenario. I can tell you that judge appointments, sometimes they drag into the end of August, sometimes the beginning of September. But we want to, keep our foot on the gas and move as quickly as we can to make these appointments. Pause there. Any questions about that timeline? Okay.
Mike, one question. Since where the voting centers are, is there any analysis on how far away the voters tend to be from the sites? Do we have anything like that?
Absolutely. We had that in the first round, and we will have that in the second round also.
Anywhere in here?
That's in I believe it's in the map, and we're going to look at that map shortly. So, talking about the map, the GIS maps. So what we're going to see is a map. It's going to look very familiar to you because you've seen it before. It's a little bit different now. And so the dark green dots are going to say, those are going to be the approved low turnout model locations. And so that's the default, right? That's our starting point. The light green dots are those locations that are not, the dark green, but have been used in some election previously. Orange dots are ones where you guys said, we don't want to use them for a low turnout model, but you may want to revisit them and use them in a high turnout model. Yellow dots are those locations that have never been used. It's, a movie theater or a government building or whatever. It's a list that we got from the North Texas Association of Governments, which I can't remember the called. And it's like 4,000 locations in the county. And so we'll look at those when needed, when we've got a hole. And pink dots are those that are unavailable. Whether we want them or not, they don't want us.
So why do we have them on the map?
Because they're frequently used places, so
Okay.
people are gonna ask about them, and we're just shutting down the conversation right there.
Got it.
And so this is going to probably take several iterations, right? But the first iteration, the very first thing we want to do is to look at the low turnout model map and look at holes, look at gaps. Because remember, what we found was there's certain parts of the county that there's never been a location, new growth areas. So I think that's the first order of business, fill the gaps. After filling the gaps, then look at, okay, I'm making up numbers. So we had 370 locations. We just filled gaps. Now we got 395 locations. Okay, now, is that enough? Okay, no, it's not. So then we'll look at how we want to add, even more, fill more gaps. I mean, so in other words, we're gonna fill the obvious big gaps right now, right off the bat. And that may or may not be easy, because we may identify what I want to do is kind of go through these and we'll look at the light green dots and the orange dots, but frankly, those are probably not going to help us for these big gaps. We're going to have to look at the yellow dots, and we'll probably go area by area and identifying a potential location. And some of you may say, "Oh, I'm familiar with that. That I know the owner. That this would be a great location." Or another place you might say, "No, this would be terrible. They got bad parking." Once we know more about that, we get some ideas or some candidates. We'll survey. And we'll reach out to those owners and see if they're willing to be a polling place. And so that's going to be over the course of the next several weeks. And then, so that's kind of the thought process, but I'm open to ideas on how else we might want to proceed. So having said that, then the next steps after that, looking at meeting schedule. 2 weeks from now, we were thinking we wanted to meet every 2 weeks. But 2 weeks from now is 2 days before an election. And so we have a runoff election, so we'd probably rather not meet on that Thursday. So we're thinking of meeting June 15th, June 29th, and then July 13th. And then we'll see how we're doing. So at this point, I want to pull open that map, but before I do, I want to throw it out to you guys and, thoughts about how to proceed, thoughts about what you need, what you'd like to see as far as data, et cetera, as far as high turnout model. Any thoughts? Okay, we'll go to a map. Oh, go ahead, question number.
Nusayba Mahmoud, Mass Sun Center. I would like to see the new locations that we approved previously. What was the turnout for them? Ones that we approved in the low.
Oh, okay, sure.
The new ones.
Well, and so as far as the low turnout model, you've got access to the entire data spreadsheet. So we're going to give you access to it. And so you guys can look through these spreadsheets, slice and dice them any way you want, and you'll be able to see those new locations.
On your website?
Yeah.
Are they marked that they were new locations?
Yeah.
Yeah, Petra can maybe share the spreadsheet and she can kind of give you a little tour.
Are you gonna give us a link to that, Michael?
It's on the
So
website.
it's Dallas County votes.
Yeah.
Go down to community meetings. Then all of these are tools that we're gonna use today. So these are these two links right here go to the maps, one for the low turnout model that just shows what was approved. Second one is for our process for figuring out what the high turnout model will be. And then this spreadsheet right here. Oh, it was not supposed to come in as a spreadsheet, but I need to adjust this. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This is not the format. This is the format that y'all just saw.
Sorry, the high turnout thing looks just like the low turnout.
This is the thing y'all just saw. This is what that document is supposed to be, and I'll fix that right now. I'm so sorry. I don't know why that.
I think they switched to PDF because they don't have Excel on these laptops in here.
Okay. Well, this is what this link is supposed to link to. This vote centers.
Change it after the meeting, so when they go home, they can
Yeah.
have access to everything.
And so you can see over here on this left side, it shows the status. There are three types of locations. It was either a standard or we were forced to use a replacement because the standard was unavailable, or in one instance, we had a location requested by an entity. So that was added to the list.
So let's just go ahead and take an example. Do you have one in mind that you were thinking of?
With Irving Library, I think we had that.
I think West Irving. Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah, West Irving.
That was
yes. So that was a standard site, and they had 242 voters, which was really good.
Yeah, it was. I think Islamic Center of North Texas. That's the one we replaced MST with.
Even better.
Wow.
That's 400.
Yeah.
That's great.
Those are the top of my head.
So you can use this status over here to see if that was the location.
Any other thoughts about what you would like to see as far, and you can, I'll ask this again at the end of the meeting. What you'd like to see for statistics to put up there. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with the maps. There we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn layers. I'm gonna turn everything off right now. So you got a blank map of county. And just as a refresher, remember, if you look at this left-hand side, and this is available for you guys to use too. There was this registered voters with points. That's everywhere there's someone registered at an address. Not very usable, so we've taken that and we've made it into a voter address heat layer. Shows densities. So that's for actual addresses. But then we also have a different one that's not only where there's densities of addresses, but densities of voters. And so that's what this one is, voter volumes. And so of course, what you notice is right here where I live in Uptown, a lot of high rises, a lot of density there. It's just a little bit different. It's very similar to the other one, but a little bit different view. Here is the approved location. This is the low turnout model, dark green. Here is the light green previously used in the previous election. These are the ones that are unavailable. Whether we want to use them, we can. These are ones that you guys said we didn't want to use them for the low turnout model, but you may want to revisit and use them in the high turnout model. Question?
Does this include the ones that we didn't get to discuss? Remember, we had like 100 something and we went maybe till 200 locations or something that we discussed, and the rest had a low turnover, so we didn't even discuss them.
That would be included. That would be included in the previously used.
Okay.
And then so these right here, these potential VCAC, these are ones that you guys mentioned, and Hebron mentioned, for instance, that location, probably in this list. These are ones that, hey, here's a location I know about that we can maybe use. And then the big one is these are potential locations that are listed by Cote. There's lots and lots of them. Lots of buildings in Dallas County, so. And then this is just some district boundaries, cities, commissioner's court. And then this is the grid we used when we were kind of working through section 1, section 2, section 3. And then this is turning the census data on when we look at dots. So like these approved dots. So then when you go to a dot, now what you're going to see okay. So Nathan Adams Elementary School address, where the voting room is, whether it's one of our standard early voting locations, or whether it's a standard election day. So this is not early voting, but it is election day under the low turnout model. Is it under construction? No. Average turnout in May elections, turnout in 21, turnout in 22. And then now for the high turnout model, The May statistics aren't as important now, are they?
Right.
Now we're gonna be looking at November. So here's the turnout for November 20. November 21, we really should take out of there, Kevin. We don't need that. That is a distraction. So we're looking at November 20 and 22. And as you can see, 244 November presidential, but 546 in the, which is pretty surprising. This is how often the location's used. This location's used 90% of the time. This is the survey score. We went out and looked at it. It's scored on 100%, so it's a really good location. Last recorded cost. So this one didn't cost us anything because it's a school. And then this is the estimated capacity based on this room size and how many machines we can put into it. This is the average distance traveled in May of 21. These are from the average distance in May of 22. I don't think we've put the average distance 20 of the, what we're going to be adding is those November statistics, which we haven't quite done yet. Also within that, let's see, it says page 1 of 2.
Yeah.
Page 2, that's going to be your Census Bureau information. Total population. I can't remember, Kevin, refresh my memory on how.
Within 1 mile?
Within 1 mile. Total population and then the total daytime population, which is different because how many people are working in the area, which is important with the vote center, right? Because if they, on a Tuesday, that might be more important than the total population. This is how many people lease vehicles, right, Kevin?
Sure. Homes or leases.
Kevin, can you explain some of these? I can't remember.
Sure. The 22 homeowners owns or leases at least one vehicle, so it's basically saying there's a vehicle at the location or the house residence. The workers 16 and plus to use transportation. That's going to be a percentage. These basically touch on these languages spoken, and all of these figures from the census are estimates from 1 mile from the location.
So English, Spanish.
Are you gonna, this is Diane, League of Women Voters. Are you gonna add Vietnamese?
I think it's in there. Well, the Vietnamese was a tough one,
Yeah,
remember?
we're having a problem. These figures were taken from the Census Bureau. Vietnamese kind of falls under the Asian language, which is kind of grouped with others, so we couldn't specifically say this many Vietnamese. Just like Island Pacific.
So can you just say Asian?
We can add Asian, but it won't be specific to
It's-
Vietnamese.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, that includes
Asian is everything.
a lot of people.
But you know, I don't know. You had a heat map of where Vietnamese were last year, seems like.
No, that again, we'll have to consult the census. Now, all these values were taken from the Census Bureau, what they call ACS, and they are guesstimations. But we could narrow down to a specific Vietnamese. We'll keep trying.
Question.
Do we have data on first-time voters versus the location?
We haven't got that. That's something we could put into our list of things to provide.
Like, I would love to see like the Vietnamese Center. I'm sure there's a lot of new voters that came because the Vietnamese Center was a polling location. I would love to see these data if we can.
First time voters.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's it. And so Kevin, this diversity index, can you explain that one?
Yes, sir. Diversity index kind of basically identifies the number of ethnicity If it was all one ethnicity, it would have a very low rating. If it had as the number of ethnicities that are within that 1 mile, the more, the higher the number.
Thank you. So that's kind of explaining each dot. So backing up, what we probably want to start doing is, well, we want to start identifying holes. And you can kind of use these sections that we did before. Or we could do it by city, or we can do it by commissioner district. It's up to you, but the idea is to, for instance, go into section 1, turn on our densities, our heat maps, and look for a hole. So as I'm looking at this one, I'm thinking, this looks like a pretty big hole. There potentially is a hole there, right through this gap here. And okay, now, if we want to fill those holes, how do we do it? So let's just make an obvious one. So we'd say there's a hole here. And we'd say, okay, do we have any ones that we used previously? Turn that on, nothing. Do we have any ones that we rejected before? Up there. Not really. Do we have any Dallas County facilities? What I turn on?
Potential.
We turned on was.
Yeah, so these are ones that were suggested by someone here. So that's a good suggestion, right? Or do we have any Dallas County facilities? No. And do we have, let's think about, thinking big, we have to put this in better order. In the order we use it, but potential here. Lots of potential there where we want to go in and start clicking on these and say, what are these? A lot of times what they'll just identify the subdivision. The city bank. So that's kind of the idea of how we would proceed. Lifetime fitness. Would that be a good location? etc. And so,
It's video.
and there's a lot there, right? I think that this is interesting though, this particular area. So I'll pause. I think we can start doing this tonight, identifying those holes and seeing if you guys have some ideas about those holes. Do you have a preference on how you'd like to proceed? We've got these areas, these grouped areas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they were just random. And they were kind of based on these, see the densities, it's all along the clear spaces, if you will. Or we can do it by city, or we can do it by commissioner's district. But I think we need to have some sort of segmentation so we can say we've done this area, now we're moving on to the next area.
I mean, we've already started with this breakdown. I'd say we stay with it.
I second the motion to go with the existing breakdown that you established.
Everybody okay with that? You want me to do a vote? Okay, no objections? Okay. So let's start with section 1. And starting from the top left, I don't know if we have anybody from Propel online. But as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, this seems like for presidential, we saw the numbers from Propel, we get high turnout, right? Going to look at previously used. So these are locations that have been used in the past for other elections. And so I see this one, but I don't see any help here. And see if we have any suggested. Definitely I can use them in order.
It's the potential.
Right under rejected.
Yeah, yeah.
Potential VCAC.
Yeah, VCAC suggested. So someone had suggested this location. And you know, I can. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
It's yellow on mine.
They would, I think there would be a problem with Saturday voting. Because that's their Sabbath.
Keep in mind that this is for a high turnout election, which would be a
It would be a
Tuesday.
Tuesday, that's true. That's true.
Any thoughts about, should we reach out to them? Or you want to see some other, other potentials?
What's that other yellow?
So this is Austin Elementary School.
Are surveys done on these locations or not yet?
No, so what we'll want to do from you, get from you is, hey, that's a bad space. I know that space, don't use it. Or, that's got some potential, then we'll survey. We'll reach out and see if they're interested in.
Does Capel have like their school district close on voting days? Richardson does, but I don't know about.
You know,
Let's call out Irving, ISD. I don't know what their policy is.
Well, that's Capel ISD.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
just.
they have their own
Okay.
district there.
if you want to, I'm going to zoom into this area right here. I'm going to turn on this other. Just wanted to see if there's any other good candidates in that same area. Main Street Village. Is anyone familiar with this particular area? We may want to, Kevin, turn off these subdivision layers for the next round. And only, hard buildings. There's a townhome, they might have a community center, for instance.
Can you please remind us again, what's the significance of how big the yellow dot and how small it is? I know it has something.
So this yellow dot is one that was suggested by one of the members here. The small dots are from the COG. That giant list of 4,000 locations of buildings throughout the county.
Michael, are there more registered voters in one potential area than another one?
Yeah, so remember the densities, so the darker the area, the more people, or the more registered addresses. And we can also look at it from, if there's high rises, we can also look at this other E-link. Basically the same, unless there's high rises.
Going back a couple of minutes, I just looked it up and Capel did not close for us.
On Tuesday?
At least not last November.
Okay.
This might change.
Excuse me, Mr. Scarbello?
Yes.
You probably want to try the dots closer to the main roads or the freeways. We'll remove those panels. They just happen to be clustered with another category.
Okay. So I think just looking at this, there's Kroger grocery store. People ask me about grocery stores all the time. And I don't know if you've ever been involved with grocery stores, but every inch of a shelf space is valuable. And so they're not likely to give up any of their space. Once again, so I think we will reach out to this church. And I think we will reach out and we'll take a look at some of these after we get some of this extra stuff turned off.
Yeah,
So now there's a church there.
St. Andrew Kim Catholic Church is
In the area.
in the area, and it's pretty close to heavy voting area too.
A lot of churches, right?
Yeah. And if the church says no, there's a school that's right next to it practically.
I think this isn't one of those deserts. This isn't bad. There's a lot of potential locations here. So maybe my question is, do you want us to just go ahead and start to narrow it down, start to survey several in that location or in that area, I guess, and bring it back to you?
Yes.
Are your thoughts, I guess we won't know until we do a little more digging, but I'm gonna identify this area as a whole.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna identify this area as a whole. And I'm gonna identify probably this area as a whole. And potentially this area as a whole. And so what we'll also do is to reach out to Capel, City Secretary, and see if they have some thoughts. Because they know their cities better than we do.
Well, it's gonna be Capel and North Irving as well.
Now, here's a question for
Hey,
you.
Michael.
Yes.
North Irving, right now, we're having a runoff, and that's one of the things that our, and I'm getting a lot of feedback on my voice, but that's one of the things that our runoff candidates have noticed is that there's a pretty big gap between 114 and La Vita, that community up there, in Las Colinas. So, for purposes, it's place 5, District 5, but they've got constituents that they think will vote up near the convention center and all of that. So I don't know, Mara's gonna shoot me in the face, but I think we should ask the convention center, and I can help with that, but they're busy. I know they don't want to allow free parking, but if we could just get them to be an election location on the actual date of election, that would help insurmountably.
Okay.
I think that would be good for them too, because they got a bunch of restaurants and all kinds of stuff in that.
Oh yeah, tons. You're right.
Be good for them as well.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback. Here's the question for you guys. So we've identified some big holes here and some suggestions, and then we've got some other new ones. As a group now, what we're going to be looking at too is, so for a low turnout model, for instance, here, we kept this, but we didn't keep this before. Ranch Elementary. And so kind of this idea, do we see what at this historically, let's see, we've never used it. We don't have the date on these yet. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So so that was a big time use, right? So that's probably one you want to resurrect, I'm gonna guess.
Yes.
Valley Ridge Elementary. And look at this one. So 149 in 2020 and 260 in 22. What's your thoughts on that one?
So I want to add that back in.
Okay.
I think for the high turnout.
Okay. And then we have one more, right? Kind of looks like one of the across the street deals. Cross Plains Elementary. Had 440 people in 22. And then the one across the street. And
300.
647.
Yep.
I'm gonna guess you want to resurrect both those.
Yep.
All the greens in number one, put it back.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. And then shop for filling holes here in this area. And potentially down here too.
I think, isn't that where the entertainment center thing is, like right in the middle?
Not familiar with area, Ronnie. Can anyone speak to that? This area here? You know that, I mean, Capella, they did a lot of voters. 517 at that location. This potentially could, we'll take a look at that, identify, think about whether or not that's an area we need to explore. I mean, I think, let's put it this way, I think we can be over generous in shopping. And then we can always cut back if we feel like we're over allocated. So that's area one. Any other thoughts, questions? Any zoom, do I need to zoom into any other areas here to look at? Definitely think we'll get the city's feedback on this, because I know that they actively have opinions about their best location. I'm going to, since I got Sinead, right line, I'm going to jump down the floor. Go ahead.
We also get feedback from the school district. I know that when we were going through this earlier, we had a lot of feedback saying, well, this school is going to be under construction and not available.
Yes.
And that was the reason for some falling out.
Great suggestion. Yes, we will. So going to this one, we had, so these are the locations that were used in the low turnout model. Sinead, I'm going to let you kind of drive the ship here on this one. Here's the previously used.
Yeah. Trying to. Well, I'm only seeing your screen, so. I like how it's I'm sorry.
Is this the area you were talking about right up here, where your candidates were thinking it was a little bit of an island?
Yes, between 114 and the La Vita.
You guys got that? Okay. So we'll shop for a location there. Let's just do that real quick. Let's see if anything obvious pops up. Yeah, we need to. Kevin said, I told you so.
It's hard because there's not any city facilities up there. There's schools.
All these subdivisions. We'll shop for that. Yeah.
A lot of new developments that are.
Yeah, that's always the thing about new areas. The houses come first and the businesses.
Yeah.
So Sinead, I'm going to click on some of these greens and you can tell us if these are ones that we want to resurrect. So we got the.
I can't see the Woodhaven Presbyterian Church. I have no idea. I've never been up there.
It was not used in 22 or 20.
Yeah.
I guess it's been a long time ago where it was used. This one. Albert.
Green. Elementary school.
Not used in 250 people in 22.
Okay.
I guess you probably want to resurrect that one.
Yes.
So let me see the other. Can you go to the left? Those other two dots? Yeah. TJ Lee. Okay, below that. See how many people.
152 and 22,
Not a lot.
89 and 20. Travis Middle School,
I think that was been used in normal elections.
71 and 89.
Yeah, I guess go back to Farron and use that one. But I'd still advocate to see how the convention center would work.
And I'll just mention this too. We're just kind of conversing now, right?
Yeah.
So we'll when we get a, a more solid plan, we'll get to the approval stage, right?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Renato, I'm wondering, the orange dots were rejected, I believe, is that correct?
Orange dots were rejected.
Yeah, because we have an orange dot with the Jack Singley Academy that is kind of in this area as well.
Yeah, let's see.
And it has a history.
121 and 20 and 197 and 22, so decent turnout.
You could do that. Most definitely. We just didn't want it for the small model, but it was used in the large model.
Okay. Resurrect that one.
Cimarron Recreation Center.
Cimarron is a rocks throw from, where is it? We got rid of that one because it's a rocks throw from Valley Ranch.
Yep.
So I'm just looking at this now. See this area? Neither of these greens were these light greens. I think we chose either of those. But this feels a little bit older. I don't know the area well.
Yeah, what is that? Can you click on a couple of those? Please?
Yeah. That's that.
Oh, that's that, Karen.
So you
Okay.
did want to go that one. I'm sorry, you did say that.
Yeah. Resurrect that one if you'd like.
Got it. Three.
I'm not sure there's much else over there. That's our problem.
Yeah, understood. So just kind of north side of this. Anything we want to do in this area, or we?
Yeah, we're good. Solid there.
Here.
Sugar Grove. Do you have the thing that will turn on anything that we've had in the past other than the neon dots?
It's on. The light green, dark green or low turnout model, light green are used in the past.
Okay.
Orange are rejected previously.
Well, then I'd say by the mouse right now, the Shady Grove, right on Shady Grove, see what that is.
Sorry. Oh, this one?
Yep. Oh, that was the hard one to get to. No, we would not want to bring that one back. That was an agreement between us, and actually that's in Grand Prairie.
Okay.
No, I think we're covered there. It's dense. I mean, that's a lot of
Was that, excuse me, Renato again, was that the area where there was a lot of trailer homes and?
yes.
Yes.
There's landfills. It's a lot of distribution too.
I'll just click on this to see if there's any businesses in the area. I think the church.
We looked at that and rejected it.
Okay.
We found a church like right around where you're clicking. That would be a good possible change.
What's that name?
Story Road Baptist Church?
Yeah, it could have been that one. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But we did. It might be on the potentials if you look at potential VCAC.
Yeah, it's not on that. That would be
On the
shown
one
as.
just below rejected on the left.
Yeah, Story Road, it's a potential. It's not a potential yeah, it is a potential. Yeah, it should be a potential.
That's
go
not
down again.
Yeah. I don't think
Oh,
you don't
click
have
on,
it
you're
on.
not looking at, you don't have it turned on, the potential VCAC.
Oh, I'm sorry, I should keep that on.
Yeah, because there's,
Hey, what do you think? We shop for this area, are we good?
I'm good as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. I'm kind of looking through the core things there. There was these light greens that were not used.
Right? Click on those.
Lamar Middle School, 167 and 124.
Most people are gonna come to Irving City Hall if they're gonna go to Lamar Middle School. Can you click on the one north of that? Right. That's our voting center already to the right of it. It's a like lime green. Right there, lime green.
This one,
Yep.
Irving Fire Station.
That gets a lot of street traffic. It's right off of Irving Boulevard. And again, people you would think would want to come to City Hall, but if they're in that area, it's convenient. It's right at the corner of Story and Irving Boulevard, and it's long light, and people like to stop at it.
And so resurrect Irving Fire Station.
I would.
Okay.
are they gonna go for that? Are they cool with that?
Yes.
Alice, okay.
I got pulled over.
Irving Fire Station. That was this one right here. This is Fire Station number 2.
Mhm.
And then this one's name was the one right above it, Davy Crockett Middle School, lower turnout,
Yeah, I wouldn't resurrect that one.
130. That's a no or a yes?
That's a no. I mean, I would say no because I think we've got the area amply covered, but if y'all want it, I mean, it's more of a, for that, I'm gonna turn this up. Just like we asked y'all to respect the city secretaries, I'm gonna respect the Democratic and Republican parties here. It's much more what they want, and they think they need.
Yeah, that's, and for the whole group, right? I mean, we kind of, especially for the May joint elections, because the cities are voting the bill, we really give them a lot of deference. But I think to Shanae's point, this is a collective decision, right?
Mhm.
This is a November election, it's being paid for mostly by the county, et cetera, so.
PJ Lee Elementary had 152 voters in November turnout.
We're on Davy Crockett though, right now, and that's the one that had 114 and 130 in the last 2 gubernatorial and presidential. What's the thoughts?
Say keep it closed and keep your powder dry and try to open another one somewhere else to fill a void. Seems like I use that much, it's pretty close to some other locations.
Yeah, life is gonna be.
Any other thoughts? Because this is the one that's nearby the light. 237 and 182.
And I don't know where the school district is on any of these. I mean, I don't even know who's my counterpart over there anymore. They change it a lot, so.
On the, back to the Shady Grove, area there are a series on the yellow dots mobile home parks, some of which I know have some nice kind of like rec center, community center type of, buildings that might lend themselves to an election. There's like 3, 4, 5 of those big mobile home parks that would, I think, go a long way to giving that community a centralized place that they might consider their voting place.
I think we can.
Yeah, that borders Grand Prairie, and so Mona Lisa's gonna have to weigh in on that.
Okay. So but it can't hurt for us to shop. We'll shop and then bring it back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Back to this central court area. Sure, go ahead.
So I think right now the density map we're looking at is the address map.
Yes.
Will that accurately reflect mobile home voters, or should we look at the voter map rather than the?
I can go ahead and put that on. I will do that. Switch that.
Mr. Scarpello, this is Sylvia Martinez with DeSoto ISD. I have a question if now's the appropriate time.
Sure.
So if we feel like we need to talk with someone and get feedback, do we have that opportunity, or all the decisions we make tonight going forward?
No, I think what we're doing right now is we're talking. We're not making any decisions. We're kind of doing a preview of, and we are going to be talking to people and digging a little bit deeper. And then at a later point, we'll make, after we have, the candidates, we get more opinions, we can make those decisions later down the road.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Just looking at this, I'm going to contrast the two. So here's the area we were talking about, Shady Grove area. The density is actually lower than the address. So it's not a huge difference.
You just got two big, you got some mobile homes on there, over there, and you've got a lot of landfill over there.
What I'm looking at, when you look at density, here seems to be an area.
Is that north, yeah.
So question that begs this question, I don't know if we've covered this already. This was a suggestion, George Farrell Recreation.
I think we covered that one with Westlight. No, that's J.O. Davis. Well, J.O. Davis has been a long time vote center for both us and the county. So if y'all wanted to add that one back, I'd be fine with it.
The one that under the other model is J.O. Davis, and then what's this over here? West Irving Improvement Association. So Davis is a yes already.
We evaluated that one. I think Brooks wanted to evaluate it, and all of us in the small vote center decided no. So I don't have any pull over that one. I don't even know what it is.
Okay, I'm going to say that's a no. Right on top of the other one anyway. So I guess the question for everyone is, do we need to shop for an area, something in here?
I would if I were y'all. I just don't know what's over there.
And that's what we're going to have our team investigating this a little bit more. We're going to turn off some of these, some of these dots because they're not. We're going to make hard buildings, more like businesses instead of.
You're hitting on communities.
Yeah.
You probably don't know, but are there any shopping centers nearby that are just empty?
We'll see that with these dots. Right now, there's just a lot of extra stuff here. Oh, there's a Walmart, for instance. Right? I don't know, Walmart, they let people camp, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll bring in traffic, right? I always think, businesses, they want traffic, especially these days, competing with Amazon. So I'm going to turn this back off.
Those are really hard to get to. I'll just be honest with you.
Is it? So we were in this area, we were working our way across. And I think what we already addressed this green. This green, we're looking at these, should we resurrect these ones? So here's the location that we have. It's Irving High School, and then here's the location nearby, Cardwell Career Prep Center. And that had 65 and 84 voters in the last two November elections. What do you guys want to do?
I don't see the purpose in keeping that one open. Again, those elementary schools are really close to it. Cardwell Prep, that's an awesome facility, but it's kids again.
I think I saw, Sinead, I saw some other heads shaking in here, so I'm gonna say, for now, no.
Yeah, I would say no.
Moving down this way, I'm seeing a government building. I'm curious about that. Well, here's this location, is Britain Elementary, and then this is government building. HHS. Is anyone familiar with that? Is that something we'd be interested or?
It's Health and Human Services Office. So you have, I mean, I don't know if they would be willing, they give vaccines and have medical facilities. And the other one's a juvenile court, so that probably don't work.
I'm seeing as I move to the left, I'm seeing what could be considered a hole. Leaving up to you guys, what do you think? I'm seeing this yellow here, which is Road Baptist. Has been used in quite some time. It's right across the street from Otis Brown.
I think people are used to going to Otis Brown.
They're very used to Otis Brown.
Yeah.
That's a popular one.
So are we seeing any other areas of concern in area 4? Should we move on?
I'm good with moving on.
Okay. I'm open to suggestions if there's any back off. Where do you guys want to go next?
Well, it's almost 8 o'clock.
7:52. Do you want to take on another one or
Can we do 7 since that's a little?
do 7?
Yeah, sure.
We have Grand Prairie on the phone?
I don't think so.
It'd be best if someone who's on the phone.
Yeah.
Yes,
DeSoto's
we're here.
on the phone.
Grand Prairie and DeSoto are here.
Okay.
No, go ahead with Grand Prairie, that's fine.
Okay. So just looking, so remember the dark green are the low turnout model, the light green are ones that we used in past elections. And so where would you guys like me to go on those? For instance, click on this green here, Hector Garcia Elementary had 183 and 220 people the last 2 major elections. Resurrected?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This one is Grand Prairie Collegiate Institute. Had 152 and 195.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Resurrected?
Yeah.
Veterans Park Event Center. It's like it hasn't been used in some time. Bowie Fine Arts,
Yeah. That's a big one.
12 people and 22. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's me. 179 and 267.
Yes.
Resurrected?
Yes.
Sure. Going down here, so we got 2 kind of on top of each other a little bit.
You're so close to other vote centers though.
So that's Ruth Jackson Center. Had 488 votes and
They weren't
not
used.
used in 22.
They're very close to the one that.
And that's next to L.B. Johnson. I guess this was probably used in that 228 and 546.
Keep that one.
Yeah.
Keep it. Yeah.
So then this green one, Global Leadership Academy, 157 and 243. Keep it?
Yes.
Sorry, just for clarification, did y'all agree to keep Ruthie P. Jackson?
Ruthie Jackson is still not being used.
It hasn't been used. Well, what was 488 and 20, but not used in 22. And it's nearby to L.B. Johnson.
Yeah, it's across the street.
So what's your thoughts on Ruthie?
Johnson.
Add it back. Could have been closed because there would have been a reason that it wasn't used in that
We
much.
can research that. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
I think the school is best because on a Saturday elections, Ruthie Jackson has weddings and major functions. And it might have difficulty with parking spaces.
Moving down. Got this green, which is Woods United Methodist. And hasn't been used.
November.
Oh, I'm sorry, 637 in November 22.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say resurrect it.
Yes.
And
If we resurrect that, then do we keep that dark green just to the right of it also? Yeah.
Very close.
let's see, that's Betty Warmack. Yeah, I know, had a lot of people vote, 651 and not used. So maybe those were alternatives.
Right.
So not used in 22, and 651 in 20. And
I
this
think we
one-
just pick one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like it just swapped over because 21 was not used and they just moved over there.
Yeah, I got you. So we have a preference between the Woods United Methodist Church. Just look at the survey scores.
Seems like there's something.
Survey score of 97. This one has a survey score of 94, so it's kind of a push.
Michael,
Yes.
this is Debbie Torres with the Grand Prairie ISD.
Okay.
If I'm remembering correctly, Mona Lisa mentioned back when we were looking at the May election that she wanted to use Betty Womack, but for the November, because of parking, I believe she said she didn't think the library was a good choice. We'd have to get her to speak on that again, but I'm pretty sure that's what she said. The parking was an issue there for November.
So we'll talk to her and get back to you guys on this pair. Okay. And so the question then becomes, do we have any holes that we feel like we need to fill in this? I see a little area over here, for instance. Not familiar with this area. Has anyone address whether or not we think we need something over here?
Possibly consider.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
There's a density is growing there.
Okay, we'll take a peek at that area and see if any of these would be a suitable location. This looks like a major street.
There's a county building, Grand Prairie Government Center. I don't know if that would be an option.
We'll come back to you guys on that one, okay? On this area right there. Any other areas that you feel like in area 7 where we should take a look? Start start at the top.
Where numbers of it?
If that 161, there's going to be a lot of apartments being built on 161 near the Epic Central.
Okay, where is that? Anna?
High density, 161 near Dubisky Technology.
61.
Near Epic Central. 161,
Roads are marked.
almost near I-20. They're going to be building and opening
Here's the 161.
density apartments.
You said, so I'm seeing the 161, right? So
Heading towards I-20.
It's south or down.
okay.
Yes.
There shouldn't be a California drive in this, should there?
I wouldn't think so.
They're going to be opening a lot of apartment
So
complexes.
in this area here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So
coming.
maybe take a look, we're gonna identify this I-20 George Bush area as an area to shop a little bit.
Mhm.
There's several government type things there, I believe, rec centers.
What's interesting is it's not showing any government buildings or government layer, but this other, we'll investigate this layer.
On 161 and the Epic, it's the new, well, the police department.
Yeah, okay, we'll look in that area.
Thank you.
Any other areas in area 7 that we should be taking a peek at?
Well, they're building.
Okay. Well, we got through 3 areas.
And Mr. Scarpello,
Yeah.
back in that area that you were talking about in 7, that's got density with no vote center, there's a Good Shepherd Baptist Church in there. That's never been used. It's in one of the yellows.
Okay, thank you. So what we'll, so it's 8:02. We've got some good progress. We'll do some homework on those 3 areas, you know, based on your feedback. And what we'll try to do for these other areas is do some work ahead of time, so we can have some answers ready as we get into some of these areas. And we're gonna narrow down those yellows to, you know, hard building. We're just gonna kind of sort through them and delete some stuff off there to try to get a little bit of the neighborhood associations and stuff, you know, out. Any thoughts? And so I think that's all we're gonna do for tonight. Any thoughts on what else you'd like to see? Does this method work, or is there more information you need to see? And I know that on the tough decisions and stuff, we want to look at transportation and all that sort of thing, right? Question.
If we're doing this for something that's gonna stand for the next 5 years, or how, it would seem to me to be helpful if the cities can give us some ideas, Grand Prairie just did, of where apartments are being built that we need to plan for the next 5, whatever our time frame is.
Yeah, we had that same discussion just this week, because the county, from what we know, the county doesn't have that information. The cities do, city planning boards and all that. And so we were thinking about reaching out to cities. I don't know off the top of my head how generous they are with that information, but we can certainly ask. I don't know how confidential that is, but the better we know, the better. Go ahead.
Mr. Scapello, I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission in Grand Prairie. I'm a commissioner, and our names and emails are posted on our city website. So just thinking out loud, other cities may also have the planning and zoning people or emails or phone numbers listed in case we want to take that approach.
I can tell you that you have a tough job. My dad was on the city planning board in Nebraska, and when we learned, when a long time ago, not in my backyard. A lot of folks have a lot of strong opinions on those boards, so it's a tough job. But yeah, we'll reach out and see if we can get any of that information. I think the good news though is that we're not really planning for 5 and 10 years, because what we should be doing is meeting on a yearly basis, tweaking. Oh, we're seeing some growth, we're adjust. And so what typically happens is the voter registrations follow you don't need to have a polling place when something's brand new. So voter registrations are coming in, we see those registrations, and then we start seeing the densities. And it's unlike a business where, oh, we're planning a McDonald's, I gotta buy land, I gotta build a building, et cetera. All I need to do is just find a place to open a polling place. So it's, our lead times aren't as long as a business's. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, suggestions on how we keep going? Seeing none, I will see you guys. Oh, I should mention this. What do you think about that schedule? Meet in 3 weeks, and then 2 weeks, every 2 weeks after that?
Yes.
Or would you rather meet more often, get it done? You know, like every week? What's your preference?
That killed, that was
Too
a
much
killer.
else going
Yeah.
on.
It helped, I think, with the city, if we could have the city people on here, and if everybody, these maps are very helpful. I think the last time it was really hard because it was a new process.
Right. Thursday nights work?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Appreciate your help. Take care. Have a good night.
How many people live in an apartment?
Yes.
It's probably not a lot.
I was looking at one that, ours that was really weird.
Right.
We've got Thurgood Marshall Elementary. It's